Welcome, everyone. I am excited about today's topic. It's an odd one for me, but something that we've been dealing with this week quite a bit, actually. So I hope that you find it just as interesting and that you have something to take away today. All right. So for today's webinar, we will be going through the verify and the rebuild functions. I am going to try and make this a little interactive. I know it's going to be a little difficult, but feel free to use the question section, the chat box, if there's anything that you want me to see, and I'm going to do my best to monitor that as we go through this. The verify and rebuild, it's a simple process most of the time, but it is something that we find that a lot of people, either it's overlooked or they don't know about it. But it's definitely something that we need to do for some basic maintenance in our desktop files. So for those of you that have not met me yet, I am Lori Walsh. I am a partner here on the Fourlane side, and I definitely appreciate everyone that has joined us today. We want to go through the verify and rebuild. We want to understand the why, the what, and the when. So I am gonna, let's go into our sample file here. There we go. All right, so I have a couple of questions for you. And again, feel free to put any of this in the chat, or if you have something, like if I'm not able to get to the questions, then I'll make sure that we get them answered after. Okay, so the first question, did you know, so all of those are in attendance, did you know that there is a file verify and a rebuild option available in your QuickBooks file? Now, of those that did know, do you perform it, or do you know who performs that on your company side? And then the second piece of that is, and if you know who's doing it or you're doing it, how often? So I see some hands, that's awesome. Okay, now number 3. So if you do, or you know who does, do you feel that that's important function to do? And then the last one is how many, or how do you know to check if one has been done? So you don't know that it's been done, so you need to check to see that it has been done. Okay, so hopefully before we get done today, you will have hopefully answers to all of those. And Cassidy, the question on the online QuickBooks, we did have some. I'll have to verify on whether that one is still going on, okay? But this one is primarily desktop. Okay, so to run a to run the verify or the rebuild, I'm going to go up here to File, okay? And it's hiding out here in our utilities. So I can verify the data here, I can rebuild the data here. Now, I am in single user mode. It does work best in single user mode. You can run it in multi, but what it's going to do is it's basically going to shut everybody out. So I go ahead and just put it in single user mode. That way when somebody goes to log in, right, it gives them the notice that says, hey, you're in single user mode, you can't log in. But when I did this, I scheduled it as part of my month end. We'll go into more detail there. But before I can do that verify, it's going to let me know that it's got to close out all my windows. So we'll wait for it to do that since I had quite a few. It's going to run through the verify. As you can tell, it doesn't take very long. I don't have any issues with my file, or at least it didn't detect any. If it had, it may have taken longer, but if it does pop up with some errors, right, it'll also generate that option to run a rebuild. Okay, now I do have a report up here. So one of my other files, I ran it just so you could see. So if you were to call us and say, hey, it's broken, I need help, I have errors, whatever that happens to be, one of the first things we're going to ask you is, did you run the verify? And if you did, what errors did you get? This report is what we're looking at, right? Now this one, because I had already run the rebuild, it was able to fix my errors, okay? General rule of thumb for the Fourlane side, we may run the verify. If it has some additional errors, we'll run it again. We usually stop at 3, okay? I've had people that, well, I ran it 10 times and it finally came out clean. Well, okay, and that's great, but more than likely those errors are going to come back. So we usually, if you end up at number 3, we usually say stop and raise your hand. Okay, now it did not detect any, right? But if it had, then what I would do if I didn't take the rebuild option there, or maybe I just need to do a rebuild for the second one, right? Just to make sure everything is cleaned up, then I'm going to go here to my file, my utilities, and the rebuild. Now, the rebuild part of this, it will require a backup. So it will prompt you to do that, which I think is fabulous because it's just in case something does happen, right? You can go back to that backup. What I used to do was do mine at the month end, as I mentioned before. So it was part of my checkoff sheet. So I knew that every month after I finished my month end close, I would go in and run my verify. Then I would go ahead and run my rebuild, and I kept all those backup documents with my month-end close package. That way I knew, right? And I could, all my reports that I kept together, I could keep that backup in there too. Now, one thing to keep in mind, we never want to save our backups with our live file, okay? Because I have actually had a client that they stored them all in the same file on their server, and then the file got corrupted, and it corrupted all the backups as well, and they lost everything. So we don't want to save them together. And if you do have an in-house server, right, we want to make sure that recommended practice is to save it on a external drive, right, to remove it. That way if something happens to the server, then you can still access the data. All right, so some of the reasons, again, for the verify, just to reiterate, is that we want to make sure that our file is strong, right? And it can indicate some problems that are going on in the background, okay? Now, if I want to do it more often, it's okay. We generally recommend also that if you're going to do the verify, that you do take it off the server to do it, right? So do it on local drive. Make sure, again, our goal is to protect our investment. So we want to do the best we can. Now, if you are on a Mac, you can still do this. It's just a little bit different. It will still live under the file area, under the utilities, right? And then you can access it or have it done that way. Now, one of the questions that we asked when we got started, right, how do I know when the last one was done? Well, if I do my F2 screen, I can get that to pop up here. There we go. So our F2 screen, I love it, right? But our last verify and rebuild will show up here. Okay, so you can see. So I've run my verify on 410, right, which we just did, and it did not find any issues. So for those that aren't sure if it's been done, if you can access your F2 screen, hopefully you can access that report. Now, if you do come to Fourlane and you are having some issues, we're going to ask about the verify rebuild reports. You can run those and save those from here, okay? Because if there is some corruption, those errors that you're going to get on there, or if you have transactional problems, right? Because sometimes it's not corruption. Sometimes the transactions are bad, right? Something happened to them. So we want to be able to see those, especially if we're running that rebuild more than once, because we want to see the before and the after. So if you can just save this as a PDF, right, then we can come in and help you with those to see what those errors are saying. I love all this stuff. Okay, so I'm looking at it's kind of hard for me to see the questions in here, but I do appreciate the interaction. That is fabulous. So what was this one? Why should you verify the data before? You don't have to. You can run the rebuild. I just like to run the verify first, because if this comes up clean but my rebuild shows something, I want to kind of see why. So I just do both. Okay. Now let's see. So we did have a client that called us. So they were actually getting some errors, right? They did not save the report. So when Jordan got the call, right, he went and got on the line. And it was interesting because for them, they were getting some payroll errors. But what triggered it for them is they didn't recognize that they had payroll errors at first. They were not able to run the payroll updates. So when he got on, he was like, well, let's go ahead and run the verify. And there were some payroll errors, but they were actually giving him a different kind of indication that the payroll was fine, but that this check was off, and come to find out that it was stuck. Okay, they were not in the practice of running the rebuild or the verify or the rebuild as part of their standard practice, so they had no idea. The check was a little bit older, right? So it had apparently got stuck after their last update. So he was able to go in, do his magic, and get that fixed, and then their verify and rebuild were fine. Okay, so it just gives us an indication when something maybe that needs that attention. Okay. All right. Now, there's a few things that we can do. So let's say that we are experiencing some problems, right? And we want to kind of do some troubleshooting on our own. Well, here are some things that we will also help kind of walk you through if you were to come to us to see how we can help you. So one of them, believe it or not, is the lists and how they are sorted. Curious on, raise your hand if you knew that, if you don't mind. Curious to see so the way that, because you can move your accounts around, right? I'm in the chart of accounts right now. Now this is telling me it has to say with the other account types. So let's go down here. All right, but I can move these around. So let's say I'm trying to look at them in a different order, right? And we want to be able to have that flexibility, but something could trigger, right, behind the scenes where that is complicating things for us. So we usually recommend, right, if you do happen to see that there are some errors, just come in, right, and resort your list. So I'm going to start with our chart of accounts. Going to make sure that I want to, right? Because when it does that, it puts them all back in its original order. So all those that we moved around, they're back in their order now. Now this is back in the QuickBooks order, right? Usually it's alpha, right? In this case, because we have sub accounts, it'll put them in the order under the subs too. I can also do that for my items list, right? So I don't remember if I've made any changes here, but it's still in the same. So I can go to item and resort, give me that same question, right? But it does put them back in that order too. Now, one of the bigger things, right, that we get asked, well, what about the customers, the vendors, and I love the hands. Thank you very much for the hand raise. You can also do that. If I go into my banking, right, to write a check, when I come in here and I do a Control L, it gives me that whole list, super easy. But then I can come in and resort that too. Okay. Ooh, didn't sort, there we go. Boom. Now from here, I would go back, right, run it and check it. Now, are there anything, let me see if we've got any new questions here because we're running a little bit ahead of the game. Oh, wait, take off the server. Yes, I usually go in and put it on, sorry, can't tell who said it, but To take it down, we never recommend running the verify or the rebuild on the server. We always take it down, run it locally. It just protects everything. Again, we never want to put all of our stuff in the same spot. So we just find that you can run the verify rebuild on the local, get it done, and then you just restore it back on the server. Okay. Now, if we're not doing regular backups, right, or maybe we don't know if we are, then I would check if you have an outsourced IT, right? Then I would just ask them if you have it hosted, like RightWorks, Skyline, Summit, wherever. Just check with them. I do know, like for RightWorks and Skyline, right, that they do the backups, they protect it. I still, even though I know they're doing it, I still do backups on my side, just in case, right? I just like to know that it's done. And again, it's super easy if you have a standard process for your month-end close to add that to it, because it's just the last piece, right? That way you have all of your reports, you have your backup that supports the reports, everything is neat and tidy, and it doesn't usually take that long, right, to run them. All right, let's see what else we have here on the question side, because we are definitely going to finish early today. Okay, it looks like we have another question regarding taking it offline. Where are you doing the... Can't read the question very well. What I'm reading is how do you do this? Okay, so when I come in here and I can back up my company, now depends on the server situation. So what I'm talking about is if we are doing if we have a local server in-house, right? It's in the building. I can back the company up and then put it on an external drive possibly, and then move it to my computer, right? Or if I have the ability to see the computer files where I can access it from there to move it on there, it's easy. It just depends. So if you have more questions, let me know, and we'll be able to provide additional guidance there. But I do, and we recommend this all the time, right? And if they need help, whoops. Last done, oh, theirs was last done in 2021. Yeah, that's something that we definitely hear quite often, is that, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. And again, we created a department here because we kept hearing the frustration on, I don't know why I'm now having to build a new file, right? Because that's what we were getting a lot, is like, well, I've been in my file since 2010, right? 2000, whatever, and it's broken. I can't get in it, right? I don't know why it won't let me in today. And come to find out, if we had been doing some of this standard maintenance, they would have been able to still be in the file. We may have had to do a condense to get it smaller, but they would have been able to maintain the existing system, right? So we just want to make sure, again, our passion, right, here at Fourlane is to educate and create that opportunity for you to be able to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to be successful. And let's see, you rebuild even if the verify is okay. I do, because sometimes in the case that I had where I showed you the report, my verify came back okay, but when I ran the rebuild, it did not. So like I said, I just do them together. And the resorting, what that does is it allows it to put it back in its original order. So an example, with one of our clients, they had quite a large number of inventory items, and they would put their lists in all different order. Sometimes they would sort it. Let me go back to my list over here. Whoop. So sometimes they sorted it by category, sometimes by name, sometimes by description, whatever that happened to be. And at some point, for whatever reason, the system was kind of in a, well, lack of a better word, kind of like a loop, right? So when we resorted the lists and tried it, it worked. So it has something to do with the background and how it's trying to go through the data. And so it just seems to help. So that's usually one of the things that we start with. All right, let's see what else we have in here. On the resort, that's up to you. A lot of people will put their data in their certain order, right? If the rebuild and everything works, you don't have to. It's just if you can't get it, and like I said, we usually draw the line at 3 because that can usually indicate that something else. So if you run your rebuild, you have the errors, you do to fix them, and then they don't fix, then you can try with the resorts, I'm sorry, of the list. See if that helps, and then if not, then it looks like we may need to do some additional troubleshooting. So a hosted server, you don't have to. I still do a backup, and I will do on my backup, when I put it down to my local, I will go ahead and run a verify and a rebuild. Check with your hosted provider and see if they run those on a regular basis. Okay, and if you don't have the access, you can usually reach out to them and they can get you a backup if you're on the list for the admin side. And yes, you can ask I love the questions. This is fabulous. So yes, you can ask your IT. It does not have to be you. I just want to make everyone here aware that this is something that we should all be kind of looking at, right? Maybe not all together, but that somebody needs to be looking at. So strategy, we back up, create the file locally, run verify rebuild, make another backup and restore to the server. Yes, the last one, whatever the last copy is, would be restored so that way it's clean and ready for everyone else. And I think that's all the questions. Let me go back here. Yep, I think that's it. Skyline, yep. Just you can ask them to see if they've done it, but if not, Skyline can give you, we work with them a lot, just like we do RightWorks. We will ask for backup files from them a lot if we're doing some troubleshooting. So all you have to do is ask, and they should be able to provide it. Now, what we don't want is everybody to ask, right? So coordinate with your team as to who's going to be responsible. But again, just being aware whether or not it's been done, knowing who's doing it, right? Because those first 4 questions, right? How many knew even about it? So hopefully we've solved that one. Everybody now knows where the verify and the rebuild options are located, and then how, when to perform them. Now that may be a group discussion, right? Who's going to do it? Who's responsible for it? How often? And then, whether or not you think it's important, we do. Hopefully you now do as well. And then how do you check to see? Again, that's with our F2 screen. See if I can get that one to pop back up, right? There we go. And then I can run that. Now on your, if you're running a Mac, you can't do the F2. That's a different function, and I can't recall what that one is, but you could still go through your file for your utilities to get to there. All right, let's see if we have any additional questions, and if not, I am going to give you back a few minutes today, but I would, if you get a chance to let me know how you felt about today's webinar, I would really like to hear from you, because this was definitely a topic very close to my heart because of all of the things that we've been working with on the clients that have come to us this week, particularly this past week. We've had quite a few that have had file instability, and that's just scary, right? It's just a scary thing. Anyway, I appreciate you joining today. Definitely the interaction made it a lot more fun, so I appreciate that too. And I hope to see you on the next one.